Will Power wins the XPEL Grand Prix here from Road America. Tony Donohue, Chris DeHarde with you. An interesting day. Kind of started out as almost Detroit 2.0 with a lot of yellow flags, some aggressive driving. Thanks for joining us here on Frontstretch Open Wheel. Don't forget to subscribe to us here on YouTube. Chris, your initial thoughts on Will Power breaking a 34-race winless streak today?
You know, it's kind of crazy. Joseph Newgarden led a lot of the middle to late portions of the race, but Will Power just had two absolutely dynamite laps that he pulled off, and that's what led him to getting the win today over here at Road America, America's National Park of Speed. We've got the front stretch actually right behind us, so it's kind of, good. Like, hey, front stretch, you get it? Yeah, we're kind of funny here, folks. Anyway, I digress. This is Will Power's first win since Detroit 2022, which was another strategic masterclass in and of itself. But really, we got to go back to the start of the race on this one. Linus Lundqvist, he started on pole position after a red flag came out at the very end of qualifying when Joseph Newgarden had a crash. We'll talk about that in a bit. Lundqvist started on pole. Colton Herta started second, and Lundqvist was leading the field down to turn one. It was awesome, until his teammate Marcus Armstrong hit him in the rear and both cars went spinning. Colton Herta checked up, as you should. Unfortunately, he got collected by Joseph Newgarden. Race control didn't call a penalty on Newgarden, but they did call one on Armstrong for initiating the first lap collision. Herta spun, stalled, got going again, and then he had a collision with Lundqvist on his own on turn 3 on lap 3. There was another caution for debris that came off of Herta's car, and he was fired up after the race. Herta was just not too happy.
Yeah, you got some great quotes from Colton Herta, so be sure to read Chris DeHarde's recap of today's race. Yeah, I thought Linus kind of a little bit checked up going into one, and that led to the contact with Armstrong, and then Herta gets punted by Newgarden, but comes back, recovers for a sixth-place finish for Herta. So I thought, you're going to look at it and say, oh, well, he started third, finished sixth, but moved his way up through the field earlier this afternoon. And then it was cautions after that for a long time. Then it was clean and green throughout the rest of the race.
Yeah. So Herta, just to kind of put a button on Herta, or put a little bow on Herta's situation, at one point in this race, he was in dead last. Mm-hmm. He led 9 laps through strategy. He has enough fuel to where he could actually push to the very end of the race, because he stopped underneath the race's final caution on lap 7. There were 3 cautions almost back to back to back. The final one was for Kyffin Simpson. First of all, he did a great job getting into the second round of qualifying. Fantastic job for the rookie.
In the wet even.
Yeah, a rookie in the rain doing that doesn't really happen all that often, folks.
He's been smooth and consistent all year. We've talked about that last week at Detroit. Wasn't his fault. He gets punted today by Christian Rasmussen.
Going to turn 14, just off into the gravel trap there, and he was seen and released from the IndyCar medical unit. But he hadn't put a wheel wrong truly all year long. I mean, sure, he finished behind several of the Ganassi guys throughout the season, but let's face it, he's got all 4 wheels on the trailer after the race. What else can you ask for from a guy like him who's in his first year in IndyCar racing after 2 years of Indy Next? We'll get into that in a little bit later on. But from the rest of the race, it was just a case of, which Penske driver was going to win. Was it going to be Power? Was it going to be Newgarden? Was it going to be McLaughlin? McLaughlin led the most laps. He led 18 laps. Newgarden led 10. Power and Herta both led 9. And really, it came down to the final sequence of pit stops.
Yeah, a sweep of the podium for Ganassi and for Team Penske. I was going to mention a follow-up to the Ganassi was I saw Taylor Kyle the other day at dinner, and I said, good weekend for you guys. Last weekend, him and I have been talking about just a learning curve for Linus, Marcus Armstrong, and Kyffin Simpson, drivers that are quasi-rookies. Both, obviously, Linus Lundqvist had some starts last year, as did Marcus Armstrong. And then a sweep for Team Penske on the podium. As you mentioned, it was McLaughlin for a while. Then we thought it was going to be Joseph. Then we thought it was going to be Will Power, obviously, at the end. And just relief, and I had asked him, and we'll post this as well, just about the team camaraderie and everything that's gone down since St. Pete and then Barber and the push to pass. And he said, look, we don't do that at Team Penske. We don't even get into the gray area. Some of the smaller teams do that, and I understand it, but we don't. And then it's good to send Roger off to Le Mans with a 1-2-3 on the podium here at Road America. I'm going to ask you real quick, Chris, what was most impressive? The 3 Rahal drivers that combined for 25 positions gained. Graham, the most in the field, 24th to 10th, or Andretti Autosport finishing all 3 cars inside of the top 10 today?
6 of one, half dozen of the other. They're both impressive to me, although there's obviously some frustration there with Rail Letterman Lanigan, because if you gain 25 positions with all 3 of your drivers, imagine how much higher y'all would finish if qualifying was just
better. And that's what Graham's been talking about
Yes.
for almost 2 years.
Yeah, and that's so frustrating for him because top 10 finish, that's awesome. But you think about the fact that he passed 14, he gained 14 positions on track, we could be in the top 5 if we were to get to the second round of qualifying. He started, like you said, 24th. It's frustrating because he knows how to drive a race car. He finished second by a couple of seconds to Dixon at the Indy Road Course last year. He knows how to drive. He knows how to go fast. He knows how to do everything right. But just qualifying for some reason is this team's Achilles heel. But Colton, for him to recover and finish 6th after being in last place for 2 laps early in the race, phenomenal job by him. But you mentioned Andretti Global. We have to, and I mentioned Indy Next, we have to bring that up too. Jamie Chadwick got her first Indy Next win, the first win for a woman in Indy Next competition since Pippa Mann at Kentucky, I believe, in 2010.
I was there.
And really? Pippa actually called into the post-race press conference, and that was awesome hearing her talk to Jamie about what went on today. Jamie, she led every single lap.
Dominated.
From pole position, she held off Louis Foster, her teammate, who had to hold off Jacob Abel. Even after a late race, red flag and green-white checkered finish of the race, she handled the pressure. She did it, and is she going to have a realistic chance to fight for the championship? Probably not. Her start of the season was not very good, but she keeps having results like this. She can easily gain several positions in the points. Jacob Abel still leads the Indy Next points by 19 over Louis Foster to move up to IndyCar now. With Will Power's win, his 42nd win. I believe that ties him with Michael Andretti for 42, or does he break the tie? Ties. So that win put Will Power on top of the IndyCar points. He leads Alex Palou by 5 points. Palou finished 4th. Palou, he finished 16th at Detroit. That was his first finish outside the top 10 since Portland in 2022. So now we can start a new top 10 streak here today. But we mentioned a Penske sweep at the podium.
That was my jinx, by the way. In May, I said, hey, do you know how many top 10s in a row you have? And he didn't. And you want to go back and check that out here on Frontstretch Open Wheels YouTube page. And then I picked him last week in fantasy and didn't work out. So I apologize to the jinx for Alex Palou. Back to the Jamie Chadwick thing. And it wasn't, she walked the field. She held off everybody, Louis Foster, her teammate, a run from Jacob Abel a few times there. She saved her tires, leads all 20 laps, survived that red flag, as you mentioned. One team that I want to mention here is Hunko-Hollinger Racing.
Yes.
It's been a tough week, to say the least, with everything that started last week with the Santino Ferrucci incident at Detroit, and then boiled over to obviously what we saw with Augustine Canapino and Theo Pourchaire with the death threats. And then, there wasn't really much out of Juncos. They didn't say much. McLaren did. Then we find out McLaren and Hunko-Hollinger, their partnership, gone. See you later. Those papaya wings, paint them back green. We get here on Friday, and we're ready to go. Autograph session happens, and supposedly, of all people, because these two men are very close, Augustine Canapino and Ricardo Juncos have a little bit of a spat. Seemed like Canapino was spending a little bit too much time on Twitter reading a lot of things.
Yeah.
I don't know who else got involved. I don't know if IndyCar got involved as a series. And then we find out Nolan Siegel is going to be in that car probably for the rest of the year. And we realize, okay, is he going to do the double? Because we got an Indy Next race. And then, okay, no, he's not. He calls Kiko Porto, who got in the car, kind of got banged up today. But that's another story for another time.
Yeah.
Romain Grosjean, with all the noise, everything going on, finishes a season best P7. I thought Nolan Siegel, the results aren't going to say, what we know he's capable of doing, but to get in that car, to run laps, stay competitive. Kudos to Hunko-Hollinger Racing. Kudos to Nolan Siegel. Kudos to Romain Grosjean. A lot of noise going on. A lot of different pieces were moving this weekend. And I'm sure that they are very pleased with a P7 for Grosjean.
Let's go through. I want to make sure we give Nolan Siegel his proper props here. He was
we had ice cream last night.
Really? Mm-hmm. He was Gessert's?
Yes, that's where we went.
Go to there in Road America in Elkhart Lake. It's a fantastic ice cream place. It's awesome. I saw Scott Dixon there a couple years ago, and yeah, him and Emma, they both had, they both loved it, what they got from
What's
there.
your go-to flavor? You seem like a, let me guess here. You're like sea salt caramel type of guy?
Cookies and cream, actually.
That's mine too. I had banana last night. It was delicious.
Oh, well,
I love it up here. Look, I've been coming out. This is my 4th or 5th time Elkhart Lake. We're out in the middle of nowhere, so the cell service is very hit or miss,
yes,
very spotty.
Very.
But speaking of spotty, you get some spotted cow in you.
Yes.
You go down, Seamkins, Tiki Bar, great places. We had dinner at the Paddock Club the other night. Was a lot of fun. Met a lot of people. I'm probably going to have some breaking news here over the next couple of days, couple of weeks. But for me, I'm off to my hometown in Northwest Indiana to visit some family. Then back to Milwaukee, IndyCar test on Tuesday, Indy next on Wednesday. I'll be spotting for HMD in the test on Wednesday at the Milwaukee Mile, a place that I haven't been to since 2015.
That was the last IndyCar race, so I've never been there.
Yeah.
So I should kind of go back to Nolan Siegel here real quick. I want to make sure that we get him his proper props. So he was actually in Indy next practice. He was on track when he got the call to say, hey, Lucas Hollinger Racing is looking for a driver for the 78. And so he stopped the session early, got out of his car.
You had a problem with HMD. His dad runs to the hotel to get his IndyCar race suit that you always bring, right? Like, you have that experience. Like, I'm sure Connor Daly was here running the 2-seater, so obviously he brought it, but
he wasn't here on Friday, though. He was not here on Friday. Had he been here on Friday, he might have been the guy, but Siegel had his seat here and his suit.
That's one of, 3 teams that Connor hasn't ran for?
No, he ran for them in Pro Mazda back in the day.
IndyCar competition, yeah.
Hey, he ran for them in Pro Mazda. So with Ricardo being on the stand, but so Siegel gets fitted for the car. He actually leaves the paddock space about 10 minutes after the first session starts. He's going to be near the bottom of every single timing session. But let's think about this. He had no pre-event briefings. He had no simulator time for an IndyCar. He may have done some Indy Next simulator work. I don't know if there is one for that.
And he's also went from a Honda that he's kind of been used to a little bit with Dale Coyne.
To a brand new Chevy. He probably didn't even know all the team members' names. He doesn't know, have them speak Spanish, have them, speak English, some broken English there. He doesn't know everybody's name. He doesn't know, like, a lot of the procedures that Juncos Hollinger Racing goes through.
There's a lot of people there.
Yes.
My friend Ashley, shout out, got the hat here. She was like, okay, we got to get you ready to go with your your electrolytes, all of your fluids, and all that kind of thing. I mean,
whole different operating procedure. And like, he comes in and now, granted, okay, he finished 23rd. All right, for most other drivers, maybe not spectacular, but the fact of the matter is, he's got all 4 wheels still on the car, no car damage whatsoever. So, unfortunately, I couldn't talk to Nolan after the race. He's actually on his way down to Chicago right now to get on a flight to go over to Le Mans to run an LMP2 car next week. But like I said, he didn't put a wheel wrong all weekend. He didn't cause any crash damage. He didn't have the mechanics working late. He went through every single process, every single session, building confidence. And he finished 23rd, whatever. But the fact that he goes thrown into the deep end, the deepest of deep ends, with one of the smallest teams in the paddock, and finished just 1 lap down.
Yeah.
Not bad at all for him.
You probably won't hear this anywhere else, but I want to give a shout out to my buddy Lockie Hughes, wins all 3 U.S. Pro 2000 races here from Road America, a very very difficult track to run. We taught you and I, Chris, on media afternoon on Friday, talked to a lot of drivers where, this is a long lap and one little thing could go wrong and you're thinking about it the rest of the lap.
Yep.
About, IndyCar going around here around, a minute 42, minute 43, depending on what session it is. I'm at Tony D. Indy. Chris, give them your final thoughts and where people can find you on social media.
See DeHarde on Twitter. Christopher DeHarde on YouTube as well. Final thoughts for the weekend. Didn't see a whole lot of good things from the junior ladder system. When you look at, there was some snaking going on the front straightaway that race control had actually banned. One USF Pro 2000 driver flipped. What was it again?
I didn't see who it was. It was towards the back of the field.
It was, I hate to not be able to give them a shout out and say, hey, they're fine, but it's just one of those situations where that's a lot of crash damage for these teams, and that can really destroy a budget for the rest of the year. But on the bright side, we got out of here with nobody seriously hurt. Everybody's able to go on to the next race. IndyCar's next race, I believe, is Laguna Seca, if my memory is correct. But a lot of these drivers, at least for the top teams, are over to Le Mans to go compete in the 24 Hours of Le Mans, and we'll be back hopefully. I'm not going to be at Laguna Seca, but I believe Mid-Ohio's next.
Mid-Ohio.
Mid-Ohio will be next for us to be there in person. Tony,
Yep.
rate this one out of 10 for Will.
I mean, I look, as somebody who, and some people know this, some people don't, haven't been the biggest Will Power fan. We've had some spats in the past, but we're all good now. I was excited to see him get the victory today. I was happy for him and his family, for him to get that victory today. And, to break that streak. Obviously, he went through a very tough family situation in 2023. He openly discussed that today in the press conference after the race. So I was very happy to see Will Power. So for Will, it's a 12 out of 10.
Yeah.
Race overall, I give it about a 7.5. I thought it was good. There was
Yeah.
a bit of chaos, which I don't mind at the beginning, and then some undercutting going on throughout the field. And Team Penske, Honda has 4 wins now, including thermal. Chevy has 4 wins now. All 3 Penske drivers have won a race this season, and I'm ready to get home and recharge the batteries, Chris. We've been going, it seems like, since Barber at the end of April.
Yes, so it was Barber, then we had like 1 week, and then it was just Indy
Red
Road
for me, so
yeah.
I mean.
And then it was Indy Road Course, Indy 500 qualifying, Indy 500, then Detroit, then here. I guess to end this, just one person who's always going to think about what could have been. Felix Rosenqvist, he was in the top 5 for a lot of the race, and he made his final pit stop on lap 39. If he gets a caution right after he makes his final pit stop, there's a very real possibility he's either on the podium or in victory lane. Instead, he had to save so much fuel at the end of the race, he dropped down to, 14th place.
Yeah.
Would have been, he was in the top 5 for a lot of that, but sometimes you just don't get the breaks. Anyway, he's Tony D. Indy. I'm C. DeHarde on Twitter.
Follow Frontstretch.
Frontstretch.
Follow us here on YouTube as well. We'll keep cranking these bad boys out after every race.
Frontstretch Open Wheels, where you're going to find us. And hey, be a friend, tell a friend.
Hey, it's Tony Donohue from Frontstretch.com. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe and return to our channel for more racing content.